Welcome, trendsetters. We're Alicia and Nicole from Positive Image. As salon owners, hairstylists, and business coaches, we're here to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of the beauty industry and discover the secrets to creating a thriving salon business. So grab your favorite beverage, cozy up in your salon chair, and let's dive into the world of hairstyle and entrepreneurship together.
A great podcast all about training and apprentices and how to look for the employer that you want, looking into schools and a bit of information for Ontario about how to apply for your apprentices. So we've decided to do a part 2, and this one is all about being in kind of the middle of your apprenticeship. What doing models looks like, what it looks like to be kind of on the internal guts of your apprenticeship. So let's dive right in.
Last time we spoke a bit about when you do register, the ministry sends you what is required to be taught. And so at that time, you can set up a training plan. And then as you go through that, you can figure out what kinds of models you will need. Do you have a model list? We have a pretty extensive, it's not that extensive anymore. It used to be pretty extensive, but they've kind of used them up. But we get regular model submissions through a website link, a website link that we have on our website.
And I totally stole that from your website idea.
It's a lot easier, right?
It is so much easier. I think in the past we would put out a model call on Facebook or in the local groups and stuff like that, and kind of get a few. But having a document that somebody from who's looking at your salon anyways can kind of submit their name. We ask for name, hair type, what are they looking to get done? And then kind of end that with we may or may not reach out to you, but thanks for your submission. I think that was absolutely brilliant on your part. And so, yes, we totally plagiarized that from your website.
That's amazing. I want everyone to take advantage of that. And it offers two things. It offers opportunity for your apprentices to actually learn on real people, with less anxiety, because these people have already signed up for this. And they usually come in either maybe with an idea of what kind of services they want, but not necessarily a high expectation of anything. And the other thing is it gives the opportunity for those that are in a situation where they can't afford, or they just love the surprise of getting whatever, the opportunity to still get their hair done. So it's a nice win-win all the way around. Do you do anything when handling model situations?
So first, we like to have a something for them to sign, and it's basically just a letter or a document saying that I understand that I'm going to be a model. So a waiver, that's the word I'm looking for. I understand that I'm going to be a model, that the results may or may not be exactly what as discussed, and that giving them an idea of how long they're actually going to be there. Because if a normal appointment was, say, an hour for a haircut, they might be there for 3 hours. So making sure that the model understands everything up front and there's no surprises, that, yes, this is an apprentice. This is somebody learning on your head. So you might not get the money piece of your dreams. It's going to be good, but it might take 5 hours to do that money piece, where if you're going in and paying full price for a full stylist, then it might only take 1 hour to do it.
I think that's a really key thing to mention. And I try to make that a very prominent point for hairdressers, whether they're an apprenticeship or they're just practicing something new and they're licensed and more experienced, is to really express to the model, this is going to take longer than you would expect, and actually give them the time frame of how much time you expect it to take, and maybe even add an extra hour, because there's nothing worse than someone thinking, oh, a haircut takes an hour. and not factoring in, well, this is a training session or we're experimenting with something new. And so it's going to be 2 to 3 hours. And they've made plans afterwards, and you're kind of stuck either the sponsor trainer finishing it up for you because the person's like, I have to leave though, and you needing to wrap it up. That's not a good feeling, right? And that like that then takes a situation where you're trying to create where there is less anxiety of working on people to a heightened anxiety of, oh crap, I really gotta beat it up here. So yeah, we don't necessarily have waivers, but at the same time, it's I think when they fill out the form, it's like you're agreeing to be a model when you fill out this form. Beyond that, we try to do the thorough consultation. I honestly, for me, a consultation is more important than the skills. Obviously, the skills eventually follow through, but you can't really get there without having thorough consultations because that's the basis for helping you understand how to be a hairstylist on your own without having a trainer always there.
That is an art form, is mastering the consultation, because at the end of the day, we are taking people who don't know the language, who sometimes don't even know what they want, and pulling, like, it feels like we're pulling teeth sometimes, pulling chunkets of information from them to get an idea of something that they can visualize, but they don't know necessarily how to articulate into something that we can put on them or do for them or make them feel. Because usually, we're doing something, but at the end of the day, we're making people feel a certain way. And so if they don't feel like themselves, or they feel like the image that they have in their mind, they're not going to be happy with their hair. It doesn't matter. You could be the most talented hairstylist in the world, but if you can't create that visual that they have because you don't know how to have a good consultation or how to really listen, not just hear what they're saying, but listen to what they're saying, then you're not going anywhere. So I love that you guys really focus on the consultation. And I love that you made that like the most important part, because it is. It is. And it is an art form. It really is.
Thanks. I was just thinking something I've noticed a lot more of too, which why I think consultations are even more important is I feel like there's a lot more anxiety from clients coming in, and instead of answering your questions, they'll feel as though they're a burden to answer your questions. And so to me, that's a level of consultation that we all need to learn, is like watching what words they choose and their body language when they're choosing them, to be like, to realize that they're just not answering or giving you a short answer because they feel like they're a burden to give you what their actual answer is. With that, I would also say we also have a lot of people who are getting new services that they've never had before. On top of hairdressing's just changed a lot. And I think it's easy for hairdressers to fall into, everybody knows what the service looks like because I do this every day. But clients don't know what it looks like, and explaining to them what it looks like that day, but also when they need to come back and what that looks like throughout the year for maintenance and also at home, is also a big part of the consultation as well.
And really, when you look at the apprenticeship booklet that we're given, I don't think having, or there might be a small section of consultations within like a bigger grouping, but it really feels like, and as you're talking about this, it's such an important thing where it almost needs to become its own subsection, because it is like, it's that communication. And if you don't have that proper communication, and communication is a two-way street. So it's not just the listening, nor is it the talking. It is the listening, talking, and understanding. And then being able to regurgitate back. So when I'm doing a consultation, once we get to the end of it, I always do okay, so we're going to do this and this and this, and then we're going to finish it this way. Does that sound good? Yes. Okay, let's get to the shampoo portion of it. And so would you like if you have an apprentice, do you have them standing beside you listening into your consultations in the beginning? Or do you have something separate where like you have a checklist of these are the questions, or if you ask this question, like what is it called? Like a flow chart sort of thing. How do you portray that to your apprentice?
I'd say it's both. We do have a steps of service. And so if they bring a model in, then I'll let them start with their consultation. And then I'll ask the stylist questions to help guide them in thinking about what other questions they've missed in their consultation, so that they can just start thinking about it on their own. I may not show it, but I'm the salon owner that if you're not close to me or other hairdressers during every step of the service, I understand, there's still other little things that need to get done in the salon, but trying your best to be a part of that service. You don't need to be standing on my shoulder, but in a reasonable box around the chair and the stylist to listen and see every single step of that consultation and then the steps of service. I'm frustrated. It boils me. And the number of times that I will tell people and I will literally move people's bodies to the corner of the box around that other stylist station. Yeah, to me, you you need to be there. If you can't hear it, if you're too busy, I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. If you're not up there on the floor listening, watching, you're not going to succeed in these areas as far as I'm concerned.
And then once you have your apprentices, like they're doing their model, do you charge your model for like the product or the time? Do you do a percentage of discount? Like what do you find works well for in your salon?
Great question. So for models, if it's an apprentice, we will do no charge except for product fee, and that would just be the cost of the color. If it's a licensed hairstylist, then it's 50%. And that's generally for them to either get stuff for their social media or to practice a new technique that they want to fine tune or get better at. But they still technically know how to do it. It's just a matter of them feeling like they're really happy with it. Do you do something similar? What do you do?
Because my apprenticeship costs are low, like if you were to book with the apprentice versus one of the stylists, is quite low. We do 40% of that cost. And that what I find with that is it makes the model commit a little bit more to it. Because I always find that there's some importance with investing. Even if it's $5 versus something free, you're getting a different caliber of person. And for the salon, I just feel like that helps to cover the cost of the apprentice's time and payroll, and then whatever products and stuff like that. And at the same time, either my time or one of the other supervisors' time too, because if you have two people working on a model for an hour or two, the salon's losing money. So there is a balance between encouraging and creating your apprenticeship as well as running a successful business too. So we need to make sure that our costs are covered for that as well.
That's something I've been pondering, and I feel like I've seen done, heard done, whichever you want to look at it, is just the kind of like at hair school, just like the exceptionally low price point because the person is training, but still have it bookable in the schedule. That's an option that people can choose to just book an appointment. It's going to be double the amount of time that it would be with anyone else, but it's also going to be at a fraction of the price. So that way there's space for those that still need a service to be able to come in and still get a service done and afford that. And at the same time, a higher abundance than the model list to have practice for the hairstylist to do those. And like you were saying, I believe it was in the last one, in part one, about that you'll have them set on standard like blowouts and single colors or root touch-ups first. And so that would be all you can book with them. You can't book other services
Exactly.
until they've passed a certain point, and then they can start offering other services as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if they get to that point, they need to be able to do those things, even if it's you're applying conditioner to my head as a solid color or a gloss or something like that. I need to see and feel what it's like to be in that client chair. So if you're poking me with the brush, then that's not going to be good. If you're pulling my hair, if you're tentative and nervous, the client picks up on those. So I need to make sure that my stylist, apprentice, or senior have that confidence being able to, yes, I'm here. I deserve to be here and I'm going to be doing your treatment. It doesn't matter what position I roll in within the salon. I am your service provider right now, and need to make sure that they have that confidence as well. I think one of the biggest topics that's not talked about though is how do we talk to the stylist or the apprentice about a mistake without freaking the client out? Or do we do this conversation? Do you figure out code words? Do you, like, how do you give them that feedback in front of the client?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic to cover because it is awkward. And I know for myself, even if I see something and someone's there just as a typical client, it's a little bit uncomfortable to step in. What I found is when someone's coming in as a model or they're listed as an apprentice, it's a little bit easier because then you don't feel like you're stepping on anyone's toes. But at the same time, if it's maybe a little bit more not, I feel like it's much more fluid as a training session. You can instantly step in. You've already set up that relationship with the model. So you can just say, oh, let me show you this way. You can instantly step in. Maybe you have an apprentice that is taking clients, or you have a junior stylist that's now like fully on the floor, maybe newly licensed, whatever the situation. I don't think there's anything wrong with going over and saying, oh, this looks fun. Can I show you something? Like, I'm really excited about what you're doing here. Do you mind if I show you something? Because usually the stylist is going to get what's happening and the client isn't, which is what we want in that situation. And generally, at that stage, your stylist should be able to see what you're doing and follow by you showing it once. If they can't, that's a whole nother conversation. Whereas if it is a model and if it is an apprentice, then generally, for me at least, I would say, are you following, or would you like to take over, or would you like me to keep going? And then they can kind of direct, like, are they beyond capacity of uncomfortable with what they're trying to do and they need me to finish it until the next section or the next piece? Or are they like, okay, oh my gosh, you just saved me. I get it. Cool. Let's keep doing. I feel okay now. How would you handle those?
If it's a model or something, I love the feedback sandwich scenario where you do something positive, something that needs improvement, and then something positive again. And I find that with that, it helps with the model as well. And I always start like at the very beginning when we're doing the consultation or when I'm introducing, starting with the like, you are going to hear some feedback, and I am going to be very meticulous with your stylist because I expect this certain level. So it's not that they're doing something wrong. It's just there's always going to be room for improvement. So what you're hearing might not be as bad as what you're imagining in your head. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just kind of say this area, and my team knows that we'll talk about that later. We'll go into a little bit more detail, but just like pay attention to this area right in through there. And that way, once the model leaves, we can kind of take a step back and have that conversation with the team. I think every salon experiences this. We really know how to have a full conversation with our eyes. And so sometimes I'll try and catch their eyes and I'll just do a
Yeah.
thumbs up. And then if they need me to come and step in or they're not feeling comfortable, they might be able to say like, hey, my boss is here. She loves this haircut. Do you mind if she just shows me a thing or two on the hair? So I kind of let them take the lead rather than me stepping in. But I'm always just like, just kind of giving them a like, are you okay? Like, do you need my help? Do you need me to step in there? Or if it's, say, highlights and they're running out of time, I'll come up to them and be like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do to help you? And sometimes it's just even like do you mind mixing up my next color? Or, hey, I got to do a tip out. Can you just like start tipping out over here? Cause I have a few more foils left. So again, that's the whole team thing. With mistakes with the stylist, I don't like to get involved unless they're the ones asking me because they have a game plan in their head. And I'm at the point where I'm thinking they're adults. Like if they don't feel comfortable in that situation, then they need to come to me and just be like, look, I need help. And I don't want to step because they might have a game plan that I'm looking at going, oh, why are they doing that? But they might like have a texturizing technique that just softens all the lines or can blend in the color or like I don't know what's in their head. So that helps.
I agree with that. I usually won't I won't enter into that space if I didn't hear the consultation and know what the end desired result is. Because exactly what you're saying, like I don't know. Maybe it is going fine.
I think we also have to be able to read the client too. Like if the client's looking
Yeah.
uncomfortable, if the client's looking not happy, then that maybe, I don't know. Everybody's different.
And sometimes that's just a matter of saying hi to the client.
Yeah.
Like maybe the client is fine. It's just like the stylist is deep in thought in what they're doing. So there hasn't been much conversation. So the client's like just doesn't know what to do with that silence. So just going over and saying, hey, how you been? Welcome to the salon, or thanks for coming back. It's so good to see you. You know, like little things like that. I think it just makes the client feel like noticed, I guess,
Yeah.
and present.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying too, I think that is something that I like to encourage, and I hope other places like to encourage it as well. And you're saying you like to encourage it too, is the ability as an experienced stylist to either say, you know what, I could do that service, but that is not my forte. This other stylist is amazing. Let's send you there. Or getting through something and stopping partway and saying, you know what, I'd really like a second opinion on what I'm doing here, just in this one section. I'm just going to go get my coworker or my boss or whatever. And honestly, I don't think once in my 20 years have I ever had a client who was upset that you chose to stop and receive help instead of messing it up and just going with it and continuing to cut and cut and cut or color or whatever it is that you're doing. They are hands down so excited that you had the vulnerability and the foresight for you to say, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this, but that person over there, they're at least 5% more sure than I am. So I'm going to ask them. And maybe they just need to tell me a thing, or maybe they need to show me, or maybe they need to do the whole thing. Whatever that is, the client, for all the baby birds, all the stylists out there, the client is going to be overjoyed, not necessarily physically, not necessarily showing it, but they will be overjoyed that they had that response to you not knowing than you just giving them the worst hair of their life.
Yeah. Okay, so here's your haircut. I'm not going to show you the back because I am not happy with it. So off you go.
Oh my gosh.
That's never a good reaction.
Yeah, let's not do that. So I think, Nicole, you do something particular after a model with your apprentices.
I developed and created some head sheets and some for cutting and coloring, and then also giving them a written point of view. So I like my apprentices to have the head sheets, and then they can write their notes and they can write what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. And that was a lot of fun to create. But then at the end of their apprenticeship, it also gives them their own style folder. Like if there is a haircut that they can go back to and be like, oh, what did she tell me to do here again? Right. I needed to have behind the ear as my stationary guide, rather than kind of pulling all the way forward, then that's going to give it this look. And so even just pick up like for their own example, like hands this way or body position this way. And so it basically just makes their apprenticeship experience that much better at the end of the day. We don't do this, but I love the idea of scheduling feedback meeting with the client. And so just sending them a message a little bit later, just kind of saying, hey, how was your experience? Is there any tips that I can give or we can give to your stylist? Because they are learning and they are an apprentice. So is there anything that they can improve on? Is there anything that you really liked about their service? And then usually they'll come up with at least one or two things in both ways. And if they just are full of negativity, then you don't have to share that with the apprentice. Or do it in your own constructive way too.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with receiving, I guess, negative things, but yes, in your own constructive verbiage, I think the whole point of an apprenticeship is to learn. And I think the more you mess up, the more you're going to learn, right? Like we learn most usually in stressed situations or uncomfortable situations where we then say to ourselves, well, I don't want to ever do that again.
Mhm.
We learn in those. As you're talking about this, about like a feedback check-in, email, call, whatever it might be, one, I think it's useful to do it as a call. So it encourages the apprentice to feel comfortable with the verbal communication. But two, I wonder if we could convince models to come in for like 15, 30 minutes, 1 month after, 2 months after, 3 months after, because I feel like that's where you really understand what you're creating. Like I don't know how many times I've told new clients that I do color as well, but I definitely focus on cutting and I can see things with the color as well. But I'm going to focus on cuts because that's me. But that it might take me 2 to 3 haircuts for me to understand how to cut their hair best because I don't know what their hair does. So I want to know when I see them come back and I see this haircut grown out 3 months later, that's when I'm like, oh, interesting that this did this here when I did that there.
Well, because everybody's head shape is different, the way their hair grows, the texture, the growth patterns. Like we're not all mannequins with the individual follicles put in a certain look. Nobody wants mannequin hair
I was just
to
gonna
begin
say,
with.
thank goodness we're not mannequins.
Yeah, but everybody's hair is different. So with color can be a bit more predictable because like unless somebody is heavily pigment, like they are heavy on the eumelanin or the pheomelanin that's in the hair, it's going to be fairly predictable. What you can tweak at that point is your formulation and get an understanding of what the color does. But with cutting, I say the exact same thing to my clients. Like it's going to take me 2 to 3 times to really get to know and understand your hair and what it likes to do and what it doesn't like to do. Some people's like my hair loves the razor. Like I have happy hair when you hit my hair with the razor properly. But other people are just like, don't even come close to my head with a razor. It is going to go frizzy. But that's everybody's hair and the way that you have your technique or the products that you're using and stuff like that. So I love that for a and I think the apprentices need to understand that too. Like
Yeah.
just because the first cut that they do on somebody isn't going to be great doesn't mean that the second and the third and the fourth aren't just going to get better and better and better because you can understand the fabric of the hair.
That's something else we don't necessarily do. But maybe I should encourage it more is to have like to see if I can have models commit for the year to coming back every so, to their scheduled amount of time, just so that way the apprentice has that consistency of the same head and seeing what happened. I'm thinking right now of the number of apprentices that cut their partner or their sibling or their parents' hair, and they get to do it again and again and again. And they get so good at that one person's head because they see them every day and they get to do it all the time. Yeah, I'm curious what that would be like to be able to convince or to have models be on board to coming back 3-4 times a year, just to make sure that hairstylist has that consistency with that specific set of hair.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think a great kind of point to wrap up on too, that like be creative when you're doing your apprenticeship. There is not all, one way. It's a choose your own adventure, and making sure that you have the communication with your apprentice or with your owner or sponsor, as well as with your clients. And, you got this. It is a long journey, but it is so worth it in the end, because you are making a huge difference in somebody else's life by being able to transform them and make them feel like that inner picture that they have, that they finally know how to express to somebody. Somebody finally gets it. So just keep doing what you're doing. And if anybody has any questions about apprenticeships or anything we've talked about today, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Take this knowledge and just keep developing yourself. And hey, we want to hear from you too. Join the conversation by using our hashtag #PositiveImagePodcast. Share your thoughts, questions, and success stories. Who knows? We might just feature you on an upcoming episode. But don't keep us a secret. Tag your friends too. And want to keep learning? Check out our show notes. Find us on Instagram at hello.positiveimage, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode filled with inspiration and insights.